Well, this is interesting. This one right here. It says, I no longer carry the weight of striving. I choose the path of grace. Ease is not weakness, it is embodied wisdom. Well, that's kind of funny because, yes, I had a technical issue earlier. I was on, what the help does, blah, all the things. Anyway, and then I found a simple solution. Thank heavens, because I was not really enjoying that. Also, wanted to share on this Farmer's Almanac. It's San Jacinto Day in Tejas, in Texas. Okay. So, on this day in 1836, the pivotal Battle of San Jacinto took place. Although only 18 minutes long, it led to Texas's independence from Mexico. So if you're looking for something to celebrate Texas's Independence Day, as I'm sure some of them are. Maybe with some Tito's, right? Isn't Tito's from there? This moment is not small. It is a sacred meeting of soul and sky. I welcome it all, the devotion, in softness, in sacred wonder. Okay. Sorry, I know the cards are kind of hard to read in this lighting here, but you're just going to have to trust me that that's what it says, unless you want to go back and pause it and reverse it, right? You are not lost, you are becoming. Even breath is shaping something beautiful. Ooh, every breath is shaping something beautiful. You are blossoming in ways the mind can't yet see. Okay. That one, it was a little hard for me to read on here, so it might be a little difficult for you. Hey, just relax. I ride the waves of change with grace. What falls away makes space for something new. I trust the tides to carry me home. Yeah. And it was like after I was not even on the phone call with support. Like they didn't fix my issue. They just kept asking me the same questions, and it's like I don't want to sign up for that. I don't want that subscription. Anyway, today is a new beginning. I rise with the light, unbound by the past, embracing this moment with courage, wonder, and grace. Okay. So, giving yourself some grace here. Here it says also, this day does not define me. I am the one who sets the tone. With my breath and my presence, I soften. With intention, I create. I choose the integrity I choose the energy I bring and the love I leave behind. Which I didn't really think that was right, that they were able to lock my device based on, a subscription from years ago. Like, I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense to me. I already paid for the item, so why doesn't it just work? Anyway, yeah, I didn't care for that too much. But what do they say? Devil's in the details. So, but anyway, I found a way to circumvent the issue, and yeah, now I no longer have to worry about that in the future, right? Hey. Dog probably thought, since I was knocking, that somebody was there. Alrighty. Protection. Call back your power. Cut the cords. Soul retrieval. Yeah. Sometimes when you cut the cords and go back to what you know and you think should be the right way, right? It turns out for you, right? And that's kind of what happened for me today in that situation. Okay. It's like I stopped depending on somebody who I don't think was really interested in helping. Akasha, your guidance is divinely guided. Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yes. I see you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll be with you shortly. Okay. Yeah. So I'm just checking it out. Don't dim to fit in. How are you dimming your light in order to fit in? Okay. So, maybe you want to wear that fancy robe or dress or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, don't limit yourself, right? This was literally on the bottom of the deck, and then it came to the top after the shuffling. I can't make it up. Yeah, because didn't I say something about taking a break? Because I was reading this card. It said, a life's work, not a season. Get off the treadmill. Okay. So, thankfully, I am off that treadmill of whatever I was working on. You know what I mean? And I'm taking a little break from it before I have to go back to anything with that for a little while. You know what I mean? Because sometimes it helps if you sit it down for a while, right? Before you go and make revisions. Boundaries. Where do you need to establish better boundaries? Okay. So that can be one of those things too where somebody always be like, "Oh, I'm just joking. I'm just joking." And you're like, "Yeah, well, it wasn't really funny to me." You know what I mean? So, you might stop hanging around that person, or you just might communicate with them differently. And sometimes that person's going to understand too. Whereas other times it might be more of a permanent boundary. Um, there was one guy I dated, and he had this thing about like poking me like constantly. Um, it was very, talk about annoying, right? Especially when I was trying to do the dishes or whatever, and it was just bizarre after a while, and I kind of went off on him a couple times. You know what I mean? But it's like he was pushing my buttons, which really, what happened was, we split, and I'm not going to get into the gory details of it. Um but because I talk about it plenty other places. But just saying, just from that alone, it's like, if that person's not respecting your boundaries and they continue to cross it, it's like, well, you know, is that what you need in your life, right? Kind of as I was talking to support, and it's like, I'm thinking, it's like, do I really need this in my life right now? Because they weren't really helping the situation. But, I think their job was to sell that product, to sell that subscription. I don't really think their job was to, anyway. But live and learn. Live and learn. That's what Brow Gal says. Okay. Let's see here. And to be able to disable your product, and I said, I was like, this has been years ago now. You know what I mean? And it's like, I was like, I know this thing works, as I just did some tests on it earlier in the day. So none of it was making sense. And I said also, I was like, how come, in 1995 this was easier than in 2026? Like, what? What's up with that? So anyway, here I am now pulling cards. Romance, Cupid's arrow strikes. Okay. Who wants it? Somebody out there does. Somebody up here like, I don't want no relationship. Well, this reading might not be for you. This is for the people that do want a little romance in their lives. There's nothing wrong with that. And, you know, it doesn't have to be, you know, what it can be whatever you make it, right? As long as, you know, it's within your boundaries that you set, right? You know, it could be for companionship's sake as well. It doesn't have to be, you know, the traditional leading to a marriage because we're going to have children and blah, 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 and legal protections and all these kind of things. You know, although if you are in a partnership with somebody, you know, if you do get hitched or do the civil marriage, like civil union, I think in my state, I'm sure there's other states that do similar things. You know, that does guarantee you some protections, like if that person was in the hospital, like that you'd be able to come and visit them and stuff, you know? So, you know, not to get all whatever, but, you know, before getting carried away with romance, right? Think about what your boundaries actually are. Okay. Look inside yourself. Examine what is causing you to feel this way. Okay. We just had a new moon as well. So, if for some reason you are thinking about romance, you're like, well, you know, I wouldn't say necessarily like examine why you're, I mean, that's just a natural human emotion and feeling. You know what I mean? And it varies from person to person, right? And what stage of life you're in and you know, your hormone balance and all those things, right? Um anyway, let's keep going. So, especially here with this, Akasha, your guidance is divinely guided. So, this looking inside yourself, um, you know, that's you know from your higher power or the universe, you know, having that quiet time with yourself, saying, you know, do I just want to date somebody? Do I actually want to be in a you know shorter long term relationship? Do I want to be you know in a marriage? Like look inside yourself and find those you know preferences now, right? And because some people will be like, oh well, I want to get married, um but they don't understand why. You know what I mean? Maybe it's because that's just what their family does, but maybe for you it's a different story. Okay, so you might want a partnership but not necessarily all the other stuff, right? And I'm not saying this for a pro or against the institution of marriage. I think it can work between people, but it is also, you know, that level of commitment where, um, you know, you're signing legal documents. So just know that. Okay. Freedom. There is nothing stopping you. The path is clear if you want it to be. Mm-hmm. So that could be part of this don't dim to fit in. Like for some reason, if you haven't been expressing your freedom, okay? Manifesting miracles. It says on the back here, your dream is soon to become reality. Trust your heart and continue to follow its guidance. All right. So that could be also while you are taking a break that this happens. That's when our mind gets to rest and wander, and we might start to think of, oh, well, this would be nice, and that would be nice, and without all of the, you know, details of like what I was dealing with earlier today, you know, where I had to get a task accomplished. So, all right, let's keep going here. And I had even like purchased a brand new part for it to work, like you know, as part of this task, and it's like, you know, So yeah, happy to take a break from that. Let there be closeness between you, but always give each other space. Love never claims, it simply allows and gives. Okay, so yes, you might want to feel closeness with your person, but not necessarily smothering, right? Um, I was just relaying this story over the holiday weekend we just had, um, where a place that I worked at, this poor guy, I think it was his, I don't know if they were married or what, but his spouse would show up to his workplace unannounced. Um, and then she would come into, I guess, the front reception. And the reason I know this is because reception would come back to our area and be like, oh, well, so and so's spouse is here. And, that person just kind of looked like, like, like it wasn't an emergency or anything, mind you. They just wanted to see that person. And what we kind of deduced is that the spouse was worried about them cheating or just, really had to be in the business. And reception had to tell the spouse, like, look, unless this is an emergency, you can't just come in here and disrupt, the employee workday. Um, it was kind of wild, So again, there's that boundary, right? And I felt bad for this person because I thought, geez, if this is how it is when they're at work, how is it when they get home? You know what I mean? Like they might not have any breathing space whatsoever. So, again, boundaries. What does boundaries look like to you? What does closeness look like to you? All right. So when you're thinking about that, in your quiet time by yourself, think about what that means. Okay. All right. Again, back here for protection, it says call back your power, cut the cord, soul retrieval. So know that you are protected. Okay. Um, there might be that person that wants to trigger you and upset you and things like that, especially if you are looking to get into a new romance. Some people might be like, oh, well, it's too soon for you or blah blah. Well, you know what, live and learn, right? Maybe for you, you needed 2 months to heal. Maybe for you, you already saw the writing on the wall 6 months before the end, so maybe you already began that, you know what I mean, healing process, right? Some folks are quick to move forward. That's their right to do so, you know? So for whoever's message that is, don't let the perception of that impede your progress, okay? And on the bottom here it says power. You instinctively know what is right for you, and you have the power to say no or to walk away at any time. Yeah, see how it's like a snake. It's like it's shaped like a heart, but it's that what I was describing earlier where the person was showing up at the workplace. And after a while, I mean, we would start looking at each other like, dude, or like, and I get, since I already said, dude, it was a masculine. I mean, people are always think like, oh, it's the jealous boyfriend or whatever, but there can be jealous girlfriends or wives or whatever, and I think after a while, people were starting to be like really concerned for this person, like. Are you gonna be okay when you go home? Like you're not gonna get beat up or something, are you? And the thing was, this person, they were so quiet, and well, no wonder they didn't hardly talk to nobody at work. Do you know what I mean? Like they were very quiet, and we worked long days. So you know what I mean? It wasn't, which we weren't really encouraged to be super chatty at that job. They were very like, you need to be quiet or whatever. But you know how it is when you when you just, start cutting up with one of your coworkers, or, obviously you have to talk to your coworkers sometimes in order to get things done. Um, so, we were always very professional, in that department. So, I just thought that was wild that he had to deal with that. Anyway, yeah. So, if you feel like celebrating, join the Texans today celebrating their Independence Day as if you needed an excuse, right? Maybe you're just like me and you figured out your technological issue earlier without the assistance of, those who were impeding my progress, right? Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this message. Until next time, please do manifest wisely. Bye bye.